Hello, and welcome to Student Voice. I'm Bentley Little. Student and faculty from Chattanooga State are becoming more and more involved in service learning. One such effort was a trip to conduct relief work with Syrian refugees. With us today are Amanda Bennett, Hammond, and Dr. Kenneth Goldsmith. Thank you for joining us today.
Thank you for having us.
So we're going to go ahead and just jump into the questions about what all y'all were able to take away from it. Now, first of all is, what interested you in visiting Greece and doing a service learning project?
Well, for a while as the director of the honors program, I really wanted an opportunity for students to study abroad, but more than just visit countries and see sites. I wanted them to be able to effectively produce change in that region and learn more about crises and things that are facing us. We partnered with an organization called Tensis, and the director of that organization was in fact the one that hooked us up with the opportunity in Greece.
How about you? What is it that attracted you to going ahead and taking the journey to Greece and helping over there?
I just really wanted to have the study abroad experience, and I've never been to Greece before, and I've never had the opportunity to work with refugees before, so this was an amazing opportunity.
Fantastic.
In my case, I've taught abroad, and I did a study abroad when I was in law school. And this opportunity came where I could actually work with students in doing what I've done in my own personal and professional life. And that just seemed a great thing to do.
Fantastic. Now, how much did y'all know about Greece before heading over there?
Well, the students took a course in the spring semester, so they completed about 70% of their coursework here on our campus. And so the course focused on global leadership, but an underlying theme in that course was learning about Greece and the humanitarian crisis that most of Europe is experiencing. So prior to enrolling in this course, I think it's safe to say that most of us weren't as aware of the issues as we are now. And it will definitely help us moving forward with future projects, being able to kind of incorporate all of that knowledge here stateside.
Well, I would add to that, I had traveled to Greece once before, but before the refugee crisis occurred. And the other part too is this: when you're a student, you read about Greece, you read about democracy, you read about Greek mythology. So it's very present in your mind, even if you've never been there.
Now, there's been a lot of talk the last couple of years about Greece being in some financial straits. Mm-hmm. Did it seem like an economically depressed area when you were there, or did it seem like they were recovering well?
I think it really is dependent on the region that you visited and the time of day that you visited. There definitely were, especially when we were working with the squats and the community centers that were assisting with the refugees. You know, there's not a lot of financial resources available. But for the most part, there were opportunities, I think, for us to experience Greece without having the plight of the refugee crisis or the economic crisis, but certainly it impacts the people there on a day-to-day basis. But as visitors, I don't know that it's something that we were constantly confronted with.
Yeah, I could add to that. When you talk to people, not just the people that we met, during the service learning project, it's very difficult if you've gotten an education and you're trying to work in your profession in Greece. So they're still suffering. If you're just exposed to the tourist spots, they're pretty much doing fine. But it's the people wanting to get jobs and advance careers where it's pretty tough over there.
Now, how has the surge of refugees impacted the local culture and the economy? I mean, what is the general consensus among the locals?
Well, I can add to that. We got the sense in talking to people that in the first year it was very difficult for the Greek are very open people. But when you're overwhelmed by people literally coming up from the port, just walking in, hundreds of people a day coming in from the port, where do people get housed, safety issues, etc. But I think it settled down. I think we learned that there was initial pushback, I don't want refugees in my neighborhood, that type of mentality. But over time they became, I think, very accepting of that was part of what they should be doing as a civilization, as a country, and just as people.
And do you feel like the culture has taken on some of the traits from Syria and whatnot, or is it still very much a Greek-centric area? Like it's very much what it always has been?
I think so. You still see it's predominantly Greek there, but you don't really see too many of the refugees hanging out like everywhere. They're just in certain areas, so it's still a Greek environment.
In addition to all of the refugees, we encountered volunteers from around the world. So I think that was one of the things that surprised me most, is I expected to interact with people from Greece and people from Syria and Afghanistan, but we interacted with people from countries all around the world, because this is such a huge crisis. People from every corner of the earth are coming to help and assist. So that was something that I think was really beneficial for our students to see, is that this is something that everybody can help contribute to the solution.
Fantastic. Now, after visiting a country that has opened up and accepted refugees in the way that Greece have, what advice would you have for other countries? I know it's been a topic of debate here in the United States for a while. What would you say to our leaders and whatnot in dealing with this crisis?
I think the main thing to keep in mind, at least for me personally, is that this is a humanitarian crisis. It's not a refugee crisis, as much as people need to be willing to help their fellow human. And that was one of the things that we tried to help our students see, and I think they all experienced that firsthand, is that I think they were very much expecting to interact with someone different from themselves, but once we were there, we had much more in common than differences.
Yeah. Wow. It was just a different environment totally. I felt that like I was more the same with a lot of the refugees there. They were really kind and sweet. We talked just like you and I are talking now. I don't know, just don't go with an open mind, and be willing to get uncomfortable, so that's pretty much it.
Yeah, and I would add to that, we talked to parents who are concerned about their children. We talked to a husband who was concerned about his wife who was pregnant. It's the same exact issues that you have anywhere. I think we all know that it has to be a process, and there has to be a way of bringing people into the country, that they're successful in the country, in the sense that you have support. But I think the American people would do more if they were allowed to.
Absolutely. Now, everyone had their own preconceived notions about Greece and about the humanitarian crisis going on over there before you went. After coming back, how has your opinion changed, or has it changed?
Well, I think Amanda said before, it was reading about a refugee crisis that had millions of people. And not just Syria, obviously, we saw refugees from other countries. But when you look at it from reading about it and you look at the sheer numbers, you don't see them as people, you just see them as casualties of war. But once you're there, you realize, we have issues within our own country of people that need help. And so it's down to, helping people, and it almost doesn't matter where they're from. So we tried to talk to our students about, now what will you do going forward in Chattanooga or somewhere else in the US or somewhere else domestically? I think what we learned was it doesn't matter where you help, as long as if you're interested in helping, you just act.
Yeah, and there were a lot of barriers to overcome to get to Greece. I mean, there were the financial barriers to help the students fund their travel. There were language barriers when we were there on the ground. And so the biggest takeaway for me is that it's great to be aware of these problems and want to help resolve them, but if you participate locally, you have that same ability, and you automatically remove some of those barriers. So I think it takes getting out of your comfort zone to be able to see that you really can have a tremendous impact in your local community as well.
Well, a lot of my classmates and I that went to Greece, we have all decided to start helping out in the community. At like immigrant shelters and things like that. So we're looking forward to it.
Fantastic. Now I just want to say thank you both, actually all three of y'all, for joining us today and taking the time out of your day to share with others your experience. And hopefully this motivates more people to really dig into it and try and help out in any way they can. But But that is all for us today. Thank you very much for joining us today on this very special episode of Student Voice. Have a great day.